Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast, where our conversation will encourage your healthy living journey. Inspired by our Team Quadzilla coaching motto, healthy living starts between your ears, we talk about mental fitness in ways that challenge us to think about our thinking regarding topics like habits, leadership, exercise, values, marriage, parenting, and faith. Our hope with this podcast is to sharpen you as we sharpen ourselves to be all we were made to be. So let's dive right into the conversation on this episode of Mental Fitness Unscripted.
Well, good morning, Chad.
Hello.
You survived Halloween. Yesterday was Halloween, so today is
Ye-
11/1, 1st of November. Can you believe
Oh my
that?
gosh. Yeah. Um,
October went just like that.
I was writing in my journal that do we remember how it was just yesterday that we were saying, how did it get to be Labor Day already? And now now we're full steam ahead to the end of the year festivities.
Now we're staring at Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I cleaned my glasses. Now I can see you.
Well, great, I guess.
You're good to look at. So,
So, yeah, what's the big thing? What's
well, I took the bulk of last time, so
uh,
I was going to let you lead this unless you don't have anything. I do have something, but
yeah.
I'll let you lead
Um,
out.
well, let me just share a little something and maybe it turns into a conversation and maybe not, but at the very least it's some news. Um, Tomorrow I'm doing the Iceman mountain bike race. That's tomorrow.
I knew that you
So,
had a race here soon, so that's tomorrow.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so um I was writing this morning how I'm excited to do this. And at the same time, I have some anxiety over it. And I was like, why, why do you have anxiety over this race? It's, first of all, you already know you're not trying to win. Um, so there's no pressure there. Um, so I started to think, well, what am I really anxious about? And it's just really silly things like, um, can I not freeze to death? That would be good. I don't like the cold. I get cold easily. The worst thing I can imagine is getting really cold while I'm creating wind of my own on the bike and being really trapped for 3 hours. That would be miserable. But then even that, it's not like I'm gonna die. I can survive that. And then I'm thinking, well, um, what if I get hurt and then I'm up there by myself and then I got to figure out how to get home. And then, I create all of these what ifs, I guess is where I'm going. And I'm like, you know better. Living in the what if is a terrible place to be. And why am I doing this to myself, especially over something as silly as a bike race? I mean, it's of little consequence other than a pretty cool adventure that I've been looking forward to a long time. So isn't that kind of weird?
Not at all. Every race I do, I go through that very, very same
Yeah.
thing. So no, it's not weird at all. I'm sitting here living it with you. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Well, good, because it's nice to feel normal, I guess, in that way.
well,
And that brings me to another idea that I'll share with you just to keep the ball rolling. But
it is normal. I'm just going to point
yeah.
out it is normal, and yeah, keep the ball rolling. I've got a whole bunch to give you here if you want
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think it's just it's an appropriate reminder and challenge to myself and to anybody else that there's our problems are pretty common. And lest we think that we're the only ones that have these fears or anxieties or troubles or whatever, and that we're all alone, it's just simply not true.
It is not true at
Um,
all.
you know, I'm reminded of a scripture that I've added to my memory list in First Corinthians that says that there is no temptation even, but what is common to man,
Yep.
and God is faithful. He will not let us be tempted beyond what we can bear, and instead he also provides a way out for us every time. And so whether temptation is, toward a sin or even for something like a fear or an anxiety, which in a sense you can, if you take that too far, can be a
Those can
prideful or
become sins. Yep.
a selfish sin, yeah,
Yep.
for the fear and anxiety. And just remember that these are normal, but they're not to be held. And that's what I caught myself in even just this morning. And just a reminder that it's okay and I'm normal. And yet there is a way out, and that is to stop focusing on the what ifs and think about the blessings and the good things and the opportunity and that kind of stuff. So anyway, kind of preaching to myself there, and that's what I got on that one.
Can I take it one more step for you?
Sure, yeah.
And this helps me out when I have the pre-race jitters. And really what it is it's a pre-performance anxiety because you
Mm.
want to perform well. And usually what we're doing is we want people to see us in a good light. And so
Oh boy. Yeah.
what you've got to do is you got to retreat back and say, okay, this is my race. Okay.
Mm.
It's not anybody else's race. Anybody watching me is probably not in the race.
True.
Okay.
True. Yeah.
And even if they are, they've got their own demons that they're walking through. Okay. They've got the
Yes.
very same demons. The rock, and I know it's a bike race and it's an off, it's a mountain bike race. And so, everybody's looking for that same route. They're looking for that same bush, the same rock. Um,
Yeah.
and you'll all treat it differently. They've got their own demons that they're fighting, and so
Mm.
you don't need to share that with anybody else. It's your race,
Yeah. They're
okay?
not paying any attention to me at
They're
all.
not paying
Yeah.
any
They got
attention to
their
you.
own stuff.
And
Right.
if anybody's paying attention to you, they're probably a spectator. They're not even in the race.
Yeah.
Okay, so stop trying to look good for them. And
Right. Yeah. They
anyway,
don't care anyway. Yeah.
so let me take it this one more step. I follow a guy, his name's Ryan Holiday. He does what they call the Daily Stoic, and he's written
Mm.
some books that I really like. But he goes back to Stoicism, which I like Stoicism. I make it a part of what I believe. As you know, I have religious background. I don't I don't pick one or the other. I make them work together. But
Mm.
there's an idea that he has brought forward from the Stoics. It's called, um, oh, I'm going to get this wrong. Premeditatum malorum, I believe
Oh my, that's a
is the
mouthful.
it's the Latin for when somebody dies or if they're murdered or something, they usually do a autopsy,
Mm.
and they call that a post-mortem.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, we do those at work.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an after action report and so forth.
Yes.
Okay. The Stoics took it to the other side of it and said, okay, rather than figure out what happened, why don't we figure out what we're going to do if that happens? In other words,
Mm.
have a pre mortem and not a post
Ah,
mortem. Okay.
okay.
And so
Sure.
these anxieties that come up and these little things, what if I get hurt? Okay, that causes me anxiety, even in my races. What if I get hurt? But why not go through that and say, okay, so I'm hurt. What am I going to do?
Mm.
And what you do is you take back the control rather than having the imagination run wild. The wolves are going to get me, or some bobcat's
Mm,
going to come and eat me, or,
yeah.
whatever. I'm going
We
to
can
freeze.
make up some pretty crazy stuff. I
Oh,
know that.
the imagination will take you very, very
Yeah,
far.
right.
Okay. But rather than do that and let it run on its own, take it to that and say, okay, what's the worst that could happen to me?
Mm,
Okay. So you get hurt. What's the worst that could happen to me? What am I going to do? And you can make plans for that as a pre-mortem rather than a post-mortem.
yes. I
Okay.
like that.
And
Yeah.
then put it in your control of, okay, if that happens, I'm going to do X, so that you don't have to come up with it. In other words, it's a pre-flight checklist that, if my in an airplane, there's actually a list of things to do if your engine catches fire. And
Right.
so,
Okay, sure.
okay, and so,
Yeah.
a pilot's flying along, the engine catches fire. The first thing he's going to do, he's not going to freak out because he knows he's got a little booklet. He's going to pull it out and he's going to say, "Oh, well, I've got to go through this, this, this," and that's, you know, it's usually the co-pilot reading it to the pilot while he's trying to keep things together. But they're checking things and they're going through that checklist of if this, then that. And see, that's a pre-mortem,
Mm,
and you do that rather than let that anxiety run away with you. Do a pre-mortem on it and say, okay, what's the worst that could happen to me? Well, here's how I'm going to handle that. And then you can turn it around and say, now that I've got that in place, I'm going to take it back and I'm going to expect the best. How can I prepare for
yeah.
the best?
I like that. Yeah,
And,
that's good.
and so I do that with my races, because I get that event anxiety of, well, I've got to look
Yeah.
good. And it's like, wait a minute, this is my race. They don't care about me.
Mm,
The spectators are watching and they're not even in the race. And if I complete it and look horrible, it's not a Kodak moment or a picture perfect moment. Who cares? I
right.
finished it.
Yeah,
They weren't the man in the arena, like
exactly.
Theodore Roosevelt talks about in the man
Yes.
in the arena. Um, I
No,
don't
that's
know
really
that.
good because what fear and anxiety is for us, in addition to being a self-focus that can be very detrimental and even sinful, um, is that it's it reveals our lack of control in the situation. And so what you're saying, I think, is by the pre-mortem is that we're in a sense finding a way to kind of regain some of that control that we feel like we've lost. And because we know that we can only control ourselves and not any of the other stuff, this is a, this is a viable exercise. And I think that makes sense. That's pretty clever.
I'll tell you a story. This is a really old story, but I remember it from when I was a little boy. I remember hearing this and thinking, "Oh, that makes sense." There was this train conductor, or not conductor, but a train engineer, and he spent hours, just watching the track and, making sure that things were out of the way, and, just operating the train, and that was his job. Well, what he did was, while he was doing that, he would think of, what if this happens? What would I do? And he would pre-plan that. And it so happened that there was an event that he came around a corner and suddenly found a train that had derailed that was right in front of him.
Hmm.
And what would most people do in that situation? What's the first thing they would do in that situation?
Well, there's usually some kind of a panic
Right.
in
Okay.
yeah,
And when you panic, you make decisions that are not usually the best decisions. And see, most people in that situation would have hit the brakes trying to, I don't want to hit that, right?
mm,
Okay. Well, this guy had pre-planned this. If I see a derailed train that's in front of me, there's no way I'm going to stop this mile-long train behind me in time to not hit that. And so what he did was he reached over, hit the throttle to go as fast as he could.
Hmm.
And by
Wow.
doing that, he hit that train and was able to keep his train on the tracks while it moved the derailed train out of the way.
Wow.
Now, it still caused damage, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
but it preserved things as best as it could because if he hit that, it would derail his train too,
Hmm.
having hit the brakes. But he had pre-planned, okay, and see that's counterintuitive. You know,
I was just gonna say, yeah,
when you come up on that, it's like, oh, I don't
yeah,
want to hit that, hit the brakes, okay, and
right.
that's the automatic response. But see, he had gone through this in his mind and predetermined, if I see this, then I'm going to do that,
Hmm.
even though it was
Boy,
counterintuitive.
I
Does
love that.
that
Yeah,
make
because
sense?
yes, because we are, um, isn't it Darren Hardy that says that so much of our life is autopilot, right?
Hmm.
And we have to train ourselves to some of this counterintuitive response because our nature is so, fearful that we're going to make a mess in stressful situations oftentimes. And so thinking in advance of that, I think is really incredible. And I can't help but think of how that applies to other things besides crisis. This is what we talk about in um, habit forming or breaking bad habits is deciding in advance what's going to happen when this situation occurs. When I'm um, when I'm tempted to have a snack. Well, what am I going to do instead of diving after the donuts? I'm thinking about this in advance, pre-planning what is going to occur, the pre-mortem to protect my healthy habit.
Correct.
And yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay. Last night was a great example. I'm going to use me. Okay. I am a chocoholic,
Oh boy.
absolute, and I am a chocoholic. And so on Halloween, I will eat half of the
Yes, you
I
told me
will
about this
eat
last
I will
week.
eat half of the candy while I'm waiting for the kids to come and get it. And you know that,
Right.
and
Two for me,
yesterday,
one for you.
yeah, the problem is they put it in a sack and I put it in my belly, and it's
Right.
not a good
Yeah.
outcome. Anyway, yesterday I had pre-planned for Halloween, and I've been treat free since May, okay? And I've been really working hard on that. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to give that up for just a celebration. And so my plan is I am not opening any I knew I couldn't begin, okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not even opening one for anybody else even, okay? Because
Mm.
that muscle memory,
Mm. That's a trigger. Yeah.
it's a trigger for me. And so I had to be really careful. And my wife, bless her heart, it's been really easy to leave a lot of stuff at the store and the willpower at the store rather than having it here. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's been a big piece of how I've been able to remain treat free. However, she bought Halloween candy a week ago. Okay. And I asked her, I said, you've got to put this somewhere that I won't see it. You've got to
Yeah.
hide it. Okay.
Yes.
It will call to me. And if
Yes,
I,
it does.
you know, it's like, was it Perseus that tied himself to the mast so that he could hear the sirens call?
Oh, right.
Wasn't,
Yeah.
pulled off. And I, I didn't even want to be tied to the mast. We're not even going by the sirens.
Yeah.
Hide the sirens. I don't even want to be there. But it was pre-planned. Had I just gone with my, to your point, autopilot, that muscle memory,
Yeah.
it would have been hand to mouth, tear open,
Mm.
hand to mouth, garbage.
Yes.
Open. and I would lose track, I'd be a 40 or 50 or
You stop shortly. Well, if you're like me with the cookies, you get the belly ache, you eat a few more, and then you quit.
that I, I was just
Yeah,
going to say I will eat myself sick with chocolate.
yeah,
I
yeah.
and it's not good. I'm self-admitted, I'm a chocoholic. So
Yes.
anyway, knock on wood, I remain treat free
Wow. Congratulations. That's a big deal with
even though we had Halloween candy. But see, I had pre-planned that. I'd already said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And
yeah.
I pre-planned that, and it worked out. So
Hmm.
anyway, helping with your bicycle race. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Run with that a little bit. Don't get out of hand on it. I mean, don't let your memory run wild, or not your memory, but your imagination run wild with you. Um, and if we leave it to our autopilot, our imagination will run us. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. This is another way I think when you hear stories of like elite athletes who do visualization, and
mhm.
it sounds a little kooky maybe, or new agey or whatever, but just I think there's some value in the way that they, at least the way I've heard them explain that, is very much like what you're saying with the pre-mortem, is they're imagining themselves doing the thing and overcoming whatever these obstacles are that come up in their head and how they're going to do that. And then when it's go time, you're just kind of executing and you're ready.
Yeah,
So,
you've created that situation. I'll call it muscle memory. I know it's not muscle memory, but there's been
yeah.
studies and studies proving that visualization, in some cases, is actually better than the actual practice.
Mm,
I know of one study where they did free throws, and visualization of doing the free throws actually beat doing the practicing of the free
mm,
themselves. Now, if you come
yeah.
and they had a third group where they combined it, it was actually even better.
Hmm.
But you know,
Yeah, that's actually something I can very much relate to with free throws, because um for those who don't know, I was raised with basketball and it was always my favorite sport, and um I was fancied myself as being pretty good at free throws. Well, then, now I can go years without even touching a basketball. And then when was it? I think it was this summer. Um, I found myself in the gym with my nieces and nephews, and we were playing basketball. And I picked up the ball and stepped up to the line and immediately just started knocking them down. And then I said, "Hey, watch this." And I closed my eyes and made a free throw with no prep or practice. But it's because it's in there and you
mhm,
recall it in your mind. This is how you do it, and then it happens.
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I'm not even a, elite
yeah,
anything, but that principle is very true, I think.
yeah. I don't know if you've ever read any of Dennis Waitley. He's kind of an old self-help author from the
Okay.
70s.
Mm-mm.
Very good stuff, and he did a lot with visualization. In fact, he worked with NASA during the astronaut program. But see, they would do that pre-mortem on situations, much like a pilot, and that's where they
Yeah.
got a lot of that was okay. We're losing pilots. Let's give them a checklist to go through.
Mm.
You know, but they did that with um, it was John Glenn. They shot him into space, okay, and he had practiced it so much that his heart rate did not even go over 100 beats per minute during the
Oh my goodness.
okay, and
Wow.
you know what anxiety does.
Yeah,
You go into that fight or flight and your heart rate goes up. And yeah, they monitored him the entire trip, and his heart rate didn't go over 100 beats per minute
that's amazing.
the whole time. And it's because he had gone through that over, and they had thought it through. What if this happens? Well, we're going to do this. And so he was confident in himself enough
Yeah.
that if anything, any eventuality, even some that they may not have even thought about, he was still prepared with that
Mm,
type of thinking. Even if something showed
mm,
up that they weren't expecting, that they hadn't thought of,
mm.
because he had been through that so much, um, that he would actually just approach it with that type of thinking that he had trained himself with.
Yeah.
So,
Boy, that's fantastic. I couldn't help but think of um the peace and the freedom that comes with that type of mindset. Um, and isn't that what we're all after,
it
really? I
is
mean,
absolutely.
we just want peace. We want confidence in tomorrow, or, whatever's the situation, that I'm going to be okay and that I'm going to make it through, and regardless of how hard it is. And geez, the pre-mortem exercise that it just, this light bulb just went off for me, is um, for me as a person of faith, is the exercise in the scriptures. Okay, this is the pre-mortem work for the most important things of life, is
Absolutely.
that I can have peace and freedom in whatever's the situation, because I have put my hope and trust in God's promises, in what he has told us through his word, of how the story ends, right? I mean, no matter how awful it gets here, this time here is very temporary in light of all eternity, where we are given a choice. You're either going to be in one place or the other, whether you like it or not. I mean, you can choose to deny that if you wish, but there's heaven or there's hell, and we get to pick.
Well, and
And when you have that sorted, there's hope and peace and freedom in that, to alleviate ultimate anxieties, I think. And when I personally can make that part of today and apply it to things like a bike race, then absolutely it does help to reframe my mind, understanding who I am and what's really important. And then I don't have the same kind of worries anymore. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that it's all kind of coming back around full circle to me and helping me feel better.
well, Paul actually calls this life a race, just like you described.
Huh.
He actually writes
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
no, it's a gift we give ourselves if we just take a moment and make a decision.
Yeah.
And we've already beat this up, but I do that pre-mortem on it, and I say, if this is happening, then I'm going to do this. And it's
Mm.
a gift we give ourselves, that we can take that anxiety out of it, and it puts, yeah, we might be out of control. Yeah, you don't know the outcome of the race tomorrow. You don't know
Right.
that,
Yeah.
but you do know the outcome, or you can at least take a minute, and it might take an hour. My point is take some time and decide how you're going to respond to what happens, and that
Mm.
puts you back into control.
Yes.
I break my arm. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm in a bike race. I'm sure there's some officials. There might be a guy behind me. I'll just tell them I've broken my arm, and tell the next station that I'm here, and just kind of walk through
Yeah.
it. What am I going to do?
Right.
Maybe you can take your shoe off and use it as a splint, and use the shoelaces to tie your arm together. Just, you know, just having that thought of, well, okay, I don't have splints with me, but I have a shoe that's hard. I'll just tie my shoe to that. Will my foot get cold? Probably, but keeping my arm in one piece and keeping it from hurting as much as it could might be a good idea. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, there's all kinds of, right. Yes,
yeah.
we can. That's a healthy exercise. I like that.
But at least I have something that my mind can go to and say, oh, wait, there's a willow right there. Maybe I'll take my shoelaces out and tie the
Mm.
willow to my arm.
Yeah,
I hope you don't break your arm,
fantastic.
by the way.
Yeah, really.
That's not the point of this discussion.
No, right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, the mission is to enjoy the adventure, to soak it all in, give it my best, and however that shakes out, just it will make a story one way or the other. And
Absolutely.
that's
And
what
you'll
I'm
have a
looking
story.
forward to.
Yep,
Yeah,
you'll have a story.
yeah,
Whatever happens, you'll have a story. So, just doing that pre-mortem on that, if you're feeling that anxiety, work with it for a minute. Don't let it get out of control. That's
yeah.
that's not my point because we can take it really bad, but
Hmm.
to a really bad spot, but work it through and there's a belief I have, and it comes from my religion, but there's a belief that I really believe is overarching. There are objects to be acted upon. This pen will do nothing unless I act on it.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's things that act, and those things that act are living. Okay.
Mm.
You and I have choice, and I can choose to shove this pen in somebody's throat and kill them, or I
Yeah.
can write a beautiful thank you letter. Okay.
Right. Yes,
The,
that's
the pen does not make that choice. Okay. And a lot of times I think we allow ourselves to become the pen and let life act on us or let
mm,
people act on us, and we become a victim or we become an object and they act on us. Now, does that stop everything? I can get in a car wreck today that I didn't initiate. Okay. I'm following all the laws. I'm being prudent, and some guy T-bones me. Bam, runs the red light. I have zero control over that, but I can choose to act or I can be acted upon. Okay.
yeah,
If I'm a quadriplegic from what happened, I can still choose how I respond and how I
yeah.
move forward,
Mm,
instead of letting that define me as a object.
right.
Does
Oh,
that
that's
make
a good
sense?
perspective. Yeah,
Okay. And
that's a good
and so
perspective.
doing that pre-mortem, what it does is it takes us from being a victim to saying, I have things now that I can act with.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's good stuff. See, all I had to do was share a little story and away we go. Here's what's happening tomorrow, and we have a valuable life lesson.
Oh, it is so beautiful. You were describing what you were going through, and I was just reliving it.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I probably so inside of I usually arrive at my venue about an hour before so that I can just get registered and
Yep.
I try to. It doesn't always happen, but I try to. And in that hour, I'll probably go to the bathroom 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Just full disclosure, just because I'm
Oh my
nervous.
gosh. I know. And what's worse is the lines to the Porta John
Oh,
are a
they're
mile long
horrible.
and everybody's freaking out.
Everybody else is doing the same thing. They've all gone to the bathroom 3 times. They get in the
Yeah.
little, blue, we call them blue rooms or kaibos, but they get in the little blue room and they're all doing the same thing you're doing. Man, I've
Yeah.
already been.
Yeah.
Why can't I go now?
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
But we're all going through it.
Yep.
Every one of us, even the elites.
That's hilarious. Very true.
Did I strike a nerve?
Yeah, I just relate so much. I'll have to plan like a pit stop on the drive up there because it will have already started before I even get there.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna
Yep.
explode if I don't stop right now.
I get up in the morning and it's like, oh
Anyways,
my gosh, won't this do?
yeah,
Then I get to the venue and it's even worse. It's like,
yeah, I know.
oh, I have to do, I have to concentrate on what I'm doing and have one eye on, okay, where's the blue rooms?
Oh, that's funny.
So we are
Cool.
not alone in this. And to your
That's
point,
right.
those lines are very long.
Yeah.
Come on.
Uh, awesome. All right, well, good stuff today.